Mark, I've been excited to talk to you about this. I
Yes.
want to know what you think of her performance last night.
Well, I looked at a lot of news in the battleground states today, and it's barely mentioned. So what I really think is it's probably a non-event. We can all analyze it. You can listen to people say it was a triumph. You can listen to people say it was a car crash. I think in the end, it's a non-event because what matters is an impact on the voters and what they hear about it. And I don't see much, again, in the 7 states that matter. In terms of the interview itself, I think the highlight for her was being feisty and separating herself a little bit from Joe Biden, saying, I think, undercovered so far, that her administration would not be a continuation of his. That's a pretty big break, at least symbolically. I think her evasiveness, her failure to address the tough questions that were asked on issues like immigration, and her saying, I'll follow the law on several issues, rather than saying what her actual position was. I thought if you're a voter who thinks she's vague, she's not offering explanations, and she's just attacking Donald Trump, I think that made it a weak interview.
Yeah, in the last few weeks, we've had several Democratic strategists and several Democrats who were hoping to vote for Kamala Harris. But every time we talk to them, they say they just need to know more. They need to hear more from her about what she truly believes in, what her policies are. And I don't feel like we got a lot of that. Instead, it seemed like most of the time she was just flipping the script and wanting to talk about Donald Trump. This was the very first question asked to her by Bret Baier last night. He said, so how many illegal immigrants do you estimate have been released into the country in the last 3.5 years? So he's asking a direct question. I think he wanted a direct response. Here is the response that she gave. Take a listen.
Bret, let's just get to the point. Okay, the point is that we have a broken immigration system that needs to be repaired.
So your Homeland Security Secretary said that 85% of apprehensions.
I'm not finished. Exactly.
21. It was essentially a pathway to citizenship for the. Yes, ma'am.
May I finish responding, please?
But
you have to let me finish.
You
please.
had the White House and the House and the Senate, and they didn't bring up that bill.
I'm responding to the point you're raising,
okay,
and I'd like to finish.
Yes, ma'am.
We, on day one, that to the point of this being your first question, it is a priority.
Mark, he just asked for a number. He asked a direct question. He only had 20 minutes. Now, we were told that she showed up 15 minutes late to the interview. It was supposed to be 30 to 45 minutes, and then her team got there and said, no, it's only going to be 20 minutes. They were under that time crunch because, as we know, Bret goes on live at 6 o'clock at night. What did you make of that? It seemed like just a lot of talk, not a lot of real answers.
Well, a lot of her interviews, even the softball ones, she seemed to just be trying to get through them and to run out the clock.
Yeah.
And give long answers. I think Bret has been criticized in some quarters for being aggressive and interrupting her. She is the vice president. She's owed some deference. On the other hand, if you've given a short interview and you sense that your interview subject is filibustering and not answering, as you said, the question there or elsewhere, he made the choice to be pretty aggressive about interrupting. But that didn't necessarily lead to answers. Of all the questions that Bret followed up on, the one you showed, several others of transgender surgery, et cetera, she never did answer. So for all of his interrupting and of all of her attempts to pin her down, stuff she didn't want to be pinned down on, she was not. The one exception was saying how she'd be different than President Biden. Again, not in the specific policy realm, but a pretty big rhetorical break. Beyond that, she said what she wanted to say in a way that was consistent with what she said in the past or not said in the past. This is the third or fourth attempt to pin her down on taking accountability for what's happened at the border on her watch. She would not be pinned down.